The classroom door opened with a soft click, and Maya Santos slipped inside as quietly as she could. Her black hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her backpack hung heavy on one shoulder. She kept her eyes down as she walked toward her desk in the third row. Mrs. Eleanor Bradford stopped writing on the whiteboard. She turned around slowly and looked at Maya with hard eyes. The clock on the wall showed 8:17 a.m. Class started at 8 a.m. sharp. "Miss Santos," Mrs. Bradford said in a cold voice, "how nice of you to join us again." Maya felt her cheeks burn hot. All 28 students in the honors English class turned to stare at her. She wanted to disappear into the floor. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Bradford," Maya whispered. She hurried to her seat and pulled out her notebook with shaking hands. Mrs. Bradford crossed her arms over her chest. She was a tall woman in her early 50s with gray hair cut short and neat. She wore a dark blue blazer and a white shirt with a pearl necklace. Everything about her looked expensive and perfect. "That's the third time this week," Mrs. Bradford said. Her voice carried across the whole room. "And it's only Wednesday." Maya looked down at her desk. She could feel tears starting to form in her eyes, but she blinked them back hard. She would not cry, not here. Not in front of everyone. "Do you have an excuse this time?" Mrs. Bradford asked. She tapped her red pen against her palm. Maya opened her mouth, but no words came out. What could she say? The truth was too complicated, too painful, too private. The bus was late, Maya finally managed to say. Mrs. Bradford made a small sound in her throat like she did not believe a single word. The bus. How convenient. She turned back to the whiteboard and continued writing the grammar lesson. Maya felt sick to her stomach. She opened her notebook and tried to focus on the words on the board, but they all blurred together. Sarah Chen, who sat next to Maya, reached over and touched her arm gently. Sarah had been Maya's lab partner in chemistry class since the start of the school year. She was one of the few people who was still nice to Maya. "Are you okay?" Sarah whispered. Maya nodded quickly, even though it was a lie. Mrs. Bradford had been teaching at Riverside High School for 20 years. She was known as one of the strictest teachers in the building. Students either loved her or feared her. There was no middle ground. This year she taught 3 honors English classes and 1 regular English class. She always said the honors students were her pride and joy. They were the ones who cared about education, the ones who would go to good colleges, the ones who had a future. But lately she had been watching Maya Santos very closely, and she did not like what she saw. Maya had started the school year strong. She turned in all her homework on time. She participated in class discussions. Her first essay about summer reading got an A-. Mrs. Bradford remembered thinking that Maya showed promise, even if she came from a poor family. But then something changed. Maya started coming to class late. First it was just 5 minutes, then 10, then 15. Now she was regularly arriving 20 minutes after the bell. Her homework started coming in late too. Or not at all. When Mrs. Bradford asked her about it, Maya just mumbled apologies and looked at the floor. She never gave real explanations. Mrs. Bradford did not accept excuses. She had rules, and those rules applied to everyone equally, or at least that was what she told herself. The truth was different. The truth was that Mrs. Bradford had noticed patterns over her 20 years of teaching, and those patterns had hardened into beliefs that she never questioned. She noticed that Maya wore the same 3 shirts over and over again. She noticed that Maya's shoes were old and worn out. She noticed that Maya never bought lunch in the cafeteria, and instead ate a small sandwich from home or sometimes nothing at all. Mrs. Bradford had taught other students like Maya before, students from poor families, students whose parents did not speak English well, students who worked part-time jobs, and in her experience, those students rarely lasted in honors classes. They had too many problems at home, too many distractions. They did not have the same values about education that other families had. So when Maya started showing up late and missing assignments, Mrs. Bradford was not surprised. In fact, some dark part of her had been expecting it all along. The class period continued. Mrs. Bradford led a discussion about the book they were reading, To Kill a Mockingbird. Several students raised their hands and shared their thoughts. Maya stayed silent. "Miss Santos," Mrs. Bradford called out suddenly, "since you missed the first part of class, perhaps you can tell us what Scout learned about prejudice in Chapter 15. Maya's heart jumped. She had read the chapter last night after her shift ended at 11 p.m. She had been so tired that the words kept swimming on the page. but she had forced herself to finish it. Maya started. Scout learned that people can be cruel even when they think they're doing the right thing. Mrs. Bradford raised one eyebrow. Is that a question or an answer? An answer, Maya said more firmly. I suppose that's partially correct, Mrs. Bradford said with a small sigh. Though I expected more depth from an honors student, Maya felt her face burn again. She heard someone snicker behind her. When the bell finally rang 50 minutes later, Maya grabbed her bag and rushed toward the door. But Mrs. Bradford's voice stopped her. Miss Santos, stay behind, please. Maya's stomach dropped. Sarah gave her a sympathetic look as she left the classroom. Soon Maya was alone with Mrs. Bradford. Mrs. Bradford sat at her desk and folded her hands together. She looked at Maya with those cold eyes that made Maya feel very small. Sit down, Mrs. Bradford said, pointing to a chair next to her desk. Maya sat. She gripped the straps of her backpack tightly. We need to talk about your performance in this class, Mrs. Bradford began. When the school year started, I had high hopes for you. But lately, you've been consistently late, your homework is often missing, and your participation has dropped to almost nothing. I'm trying, Maya said quietly. Are you? Mrs. Bradford leaned forward. Because from where I sit, it looks like you're not taking this class seriously. Honors English is a privilege, not a right. There are students on the waiting list who would love to have your spot. Maya felt panic rise in her chest. She needed this class. Colleges looked at honors classes. Without them, she would never get scholarships. Without scholarships, college was impossible. Please, Maya said. I'll do better. I promise, Mrs. Bradford shook her head slowly. I've heard that before from students like you. You make promises, but nothing changes. Maybe you're just not ready for this level of coursework. Maybe you'd be more comfortable in a regular class where the expectations are lower. Students like you. Those words hit Maya like a punch. She knew what Mrs. Bradford meant. Poor students. Brown students. Students whose families struggled. I can handle the work, Maya said, and for the first time there was a spark of anger in her voice. Mrs. Bradford looked surprised. She was not used to Maya showing any emotion besides quiet shame. We'll see, Mrs. Bradford said. You have detention today at lunch, and tomorrow, and the rest of this week. Use that time to think about whether you really belong in this class. Maya stood up. Her hands were shaking, but she held her head a little higher than before. Yes, ma'am, she said. As Maya left the classroom, Mrs. Bradford watched her go. She told herself she was being fair. She told herself she was holding Maya to the same standards as everyone else. But deep down, in a place she did not want to examine, she knew the truth. She had already decided that Maya would fail, and she was treating her accordingly. The week passed slowly for Maya. She showed up to lunch detention every single day and sat in Mrs. Bradford's classroom while other students laughed and talked in the cafeteria. She used the time to catch up on homework, but it was hard to concentrate when her stomach growled from hunger. By Friday, Maya was exhausted. She had dark circles under her eyes that makeup could not hide. Not that she had money for makeup anyway. Friday morning started badly. Maya's alarm did not go off, or maybe she had forgotten to set it. Either way, she woke up 40 minutes late. Her heart started racing the moment she opened her eyes and saw the time. She jumped out of bed and ran to her younger siblings' room. 7-year-old Carlos and 5-year-old Sophia were still sleeping. Maya shook them awake gently. Come on, we need to hurry, she said, trying to keep the panic out of her voice. She helped Sophia get dressed while Carlos put on his school uniform. She made them each a quick peanut butter sandwich and filled their water bottles. Her own breakfast would have to wait. Again. The three of them rushed out of the small apartment and down the stairs. Maya locked the door with shaking hands. They had to catch the 7:15 bus or everything would fall apart. They made it to the bus stop just as the bus was pulling away. Maya wanted to scream. Instead, she held Sophia's hand tighter and checked her phone. The next bus would not come for another 25 minutes. Are we going to be late? Carlos asked. He had his mother's dark eyes and worried face. It'll be okay, Maya lied. We'll make it, but they did not make it. After dropping her siblings at their elementary school and taking 2 more buses across town, Maya arrived at Riverside High at 8:32 a.m. Class had been going for more than half an hour. She stood outside the classroom door for a long moment. She thought about just leaving, going to the library, skipping class entirely, but that would only make things worse. Maya opened the door. Mrs. Bradford stopped mid-sentence. The entire class turned to look. Maya felt like she was standing under a spotlight. "Miss Santos," Mrs. Bradford said. Her voice was sharp as broken glass. "How generous of you to grace us with your presence." Maya walked to her desk without saying anything. What was the point? Mrs. Bradford did not want to hear her reasons, but Mrs. Bradford was not finished. "Not even close, class," Mrs. Bradford said loudly. "I want to talk to you all about something important. It's about respect, and responsibility, and time management." Maya felt her whole body go cold. She knew what was coming. Mrs. Bradford walked to the front of her desk and leaned against it. She looked directly at Maya as she spoke. "Some people think that rules don't apply to them," Mrs. Bradford continued. "Some people think they can just show up whenever they feel like it, that their time is more important than everyone else's." Sarah Chen shifted uncomfortably in her seat. A few other students looked down at their desks. "In many cultures," Mrs. Bradford went on, "punctuality is not valued the same way it is in professional American society. But this is an honors class. If you want to succeed in this country, you need to learn to respect other people's time." Maya's throat felt tight. She wanted to stand up and scream. She wanted to tell Mrs. Bradford everything. About her mother in the hospital bed, too weak to even sit up. About the bills piled on the kitchen table. About working until midnight and waking up at 5 in the morning. About being 15 years old and playing mother to 2 scared little kids. But she said nothing. Because what if telling the truth made things worse? What if the school called social services? What if they took Carlos and Sophia away? So Maya just sat there and took it. She let Mrs. Bradford's words wash over her like acid rain. "I'm seriously questioning whether you belong in this class anymore," Mrs. Bradford said. "Maybe the regular English class would be more your speed. Less demanding. More flexible for people with different priorities." A boy named Marcus in the back row spoke up. "Mrs. Bradford, isn't that kind of harsh?" Mrs. Bradford turned to him with cold eyes. "Mr. Johnson, when you've been teaching for 20 years, you can make these decisions. Until then, keep your opinions to yourself." Marcus shut his mouth, but he looked angry. The rest of class was a blur. Maya copied notes from the board without really seeing them. When the bell rang, she was the first one out the door. She made it to the bathroom before the tears came. She locked herself in a stall and cried as quietly as she could. She felt broken, humiliated, small. The bathroom door opened. Maya held her breath and tried to stop crying. "Maya?" It was Sarah's voice. "Are you in here?" Maya did not answer. "I know you're here," Sarah said gently. "I saw you come in." "Go away," Maya said. Her voice was rough from crying. "No," Sarah said simply. "I'm not going anywhere." Maya heard Sarah sit down on the floor outside the stall. After a long moment, Maya unlocked the door and came out. Her eyes were red and swollen. Sarah stood up and hugged her without saying anything. Maya was so surprised she almost started crying again. "Mrs. Bradford is out of line," Sarah said firmly. "The way she talks to you is not okay." "It doesn't matter," Maya said tiredly. "Yes, it does," Sarah insisted. "You don't deserve that." "Nobody does." Maya washed her face in the sink and tried to pull herself together. She had 3 more classes to get through before her shift at work. That afternoon, Sarah made a decision. She could not watch this happen anymore. After school ended, she went straight to the principal's office. Mr. David Rodriguez was in his late 40s with kind eyes and graying hair. He had been principal at Riverside High for 6 years. Most students liked him because he actually listened when they talked. "Come in," he called when Sarah knocked on his door. Sarah sat down across from his desk. She felt nervous but determined. "Mr. Rodriguez, I need to talk to you about something serious," she said. "Okay," he said, giving her his full attention. "What's going on?" "It's about Mrs. Bradford," Sarah began, "and the way she treats Maya Santos." She told him everything she had witnessed over the past few weeks. The public humiliations, the comments about culture and punctuality, the constant threats to remove Maya from honors English. Mr. Rodriguez listened carefully. His face grew more serious as Sarah talked. "These are serious allegations," he said when she finished. "Has Maya talked to anyone about this?" "No," Sarah said. "She just takes it. She never defends herself." "But Mr. Rodriguez, something is really wrong. Maya looks exhausted all the time. And Mrs. Bradford treats her completely different than the other students." Mr. Rodriguez made some notes on a pad of paper. "Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Sarah. I'm going to look into this." Will you tell Mrs. Bradford I said something? Sarah asked nervously. No, Mr. Rodriguez assured her. I'll handle this carefully. After Sarah left, Mr. Rodriguez sat back in his chair and thought. He had heard whispers about Mrs. Bradford before. Nothing concrete. Just feelings from students that she treated some of them differently than others. He had dismissed it as typical teenager drama, but maybe he had been wrong. He pulled up Maya's file on his computer. Good grades last year. Teachers described her as quiet but hard-working. She was in 3 honors classes. Her entrance exam scores were solid. Then he looked at this year. Her grades were dropping. Several teachers had noted she seemed tired and distracted. Mrs. Bradford had sent him 3 emails in the past month, requesting that Maya be removed from honors English. Mr. Rodriguez made a decision. On Monday, he would observe Mrs. Bradford's first period class himself. Meanwhile, Maya was at her job at Quick Burger across the street from school. She wore a red uniform and a plastic name tag. She took orders and wiped down tables and emptied trash cans. Sarah had walked by the restaurant on her way home. She stopped and looked through the window. There was Maya, cleaning up someone's spilled drink with a tired smile on her face. Sarah felt a stab of guilt. She had never really thought about Maya's life outside of school. She had never asked why Maya was always tired, why she never hung out after school, why she ate so little at lunch. She pulled out her phone and almost texted Maya, but what would she say? She put the phone away and kept walking. That night, Maya got home at 10:45 p.m. The apartment was dark and quiet. She found Carlos and Sofia asleep on the couch with the TV still on. They had been waiting for her again. Maya turned off the TV and gently woke them up. Come on, guys. Let's get you to bed. She helped them brush their teeth and tucked them into bed. Sofia held onto her hand. When is Mama coming home? Sofia asked in a small voice. Maya felt her heart break a little more. Soon, baby, soon. But she did not know if that was true. Her mother's cancer treatment was not working as well as the doctors had hoped. The bills kept coming. Maya was working as many hours as they would give her, but it was never enough. After her siblings fell asleep, Maya sat at the kitchen table with her homework. She had an essay due for Mrs. Bradford on Monday. She had barely started it. She stared at the blank page on her laptop. The words would not come. She was too tired, too angry, too sad. At 1:30 a.m. she gave up and went to bed. She would have to finish the essay this weekend, if she could stay awake long enough. As she lay in the dark, Maya thought about Mrs. Bradford's words. Maybe she was right. Maybe Maya did not belong in honors English. Maybe she should just give up and make everything easier. But then she thought about her mother, about the dreams they had shared, about college and a better life, about breaking free from poverty. I can't give up, Maya whispered to herself in the dark. I won't. But she was so tired. And the weight of everything felt so heavy. And Monday morning would come too soon, bringing another week of judgment and shame. Monday morning came with gray clouds and cold rain. Maya managed to get her siblings to school on time, but the buses ran slow because of the weather. She arrived at Riverside High at 8:18 a.m., soaking wet and breathing hard from running from the bus stop. Today was test day in Mrs. Bradford's class, a major test on To Kill a Mockingbird that was worth 20% of their grade. Maya had studied for it all weekend between work shifts and taking care of Carlos and Sofia. She knew the book inside and out. But when she opened the classroom door, Mrs. Bradford was already handing out test papers to the students. Miss Santos, Mrs. Bradford said without looking up. How predictable. I'm sorry, Maya said quickly. The rain made the buses slow. Please, can I still take the test? Mrs. Bradford finally looked at her. Her face was like stone. The test started 18 minutes ago. That's not fair to the other students who arrived on time. But I studied, Maya said. Her voice cracked with desperation. Please, Mrs. Bradford, I know all the answers. Should have thought of that before you wasted my time all semester, Mrs. Bradford said coldly. She marked something in her grade book with her red pen. Automatic 0. Now sit down and be quiet so the other students can focus. Maya felt like she had been punched in the stomach. She could not breathe. An automatic 0 would destroy her grade. She would probably fail the class. Please, Maya whispered one more time. Sit down. Mrs. Bradford's voice was final. Maya walked to her desk like she was in a dream. This could not be happening. She sat down and put her head in her hands. Around her, the other students worked on their tests. Sarah kept glancing over at her with worried eyes. The 50-minute class period felt like forever. Maya just sat there trying not to cry. She failed, not because she did not know the material, not because she did not study, but because she was 18 minutes late. When the bell rang, Maya grabbed her bag and ran out of the room. She did not go to her next class. Instead, she went to the bathroom and locked herself in a stall. This time, when she cried, she could not stop. All the stress and fear and exhaustion of the past 3 months came pouring out. She cried until her chest hurt and her eyes were swollen. She did not hear the bathroom door open. She did not hear footsteps approaching. Maya? Sarah's voice was soft and concerned. Go away, Maya said through her tears. No, Sarah said firmly. She had said the same thing on Friday. I'm not leaving you alone. Why do you care? Maya asked bitterly. Nobody else does. Because you're my friend, Sarah said. And because what Mrs. Bradford did in there was wrong. Maya laughed, but it came out broken and sad. It doesn't matter. I'm going to fail anyway. Maya, please, Sarah said. Talk to me. What's really going on? Why are you always late? Why do you look so tired all the time? For a long moment, Maya said nothing. She had kept her secrets for so long. Telling no one. Carrying everything alone. But she was so tired of being alone. My mom is in the hospital, Maya finally said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. She has cancer. Stage 3, Sarah gasped. Oh, Maya. The words started coming faster now, like a dam had broken. My dad left 2 years ago. We don't have any family here. It's just me and my little brother and sister. They're 7 and 5. I have to get them ready for school every morning. Make their breakfast. Pack their lunches. Take them to their school across town on the bus. Maya, Sarah said softly. Then I have to take 2 more buses to get here, Maya continued. And the buses are always late or crowded or don't show up at all. And after school I work at Quick Burger until 10:30 or 11 at night, because we need money for rent and food and Mom's medical bills. Then I go home and help Carlos and Sophia with homework and put them to bed. And then I do my own homework. And I try to sleep, but I'm so worried all the time. Maya was crying again now, but she kept talking. It all came spilling out. I wake up at 5 a.m. every day. I'm so tired. I'm so tired all the time. But I can't stop. Because if I stop, if I fail, then social services might take Carlos and Sophia away, and they're all I have left. They're all Mom has left. Sarah had tears running down her own face now. Why didn't you tell anyone? Because I'm scared, Maya admitted. Mom doesn't have papers. If the school finds out how bad things are, they might call social services. We could be separated. Carlos and Sophia could be put in foster care. I can't let that happen. Oh, Maya, Sarah said again. She sounded heartbroken. Mrs. Bradford thinks I'm just lazy, Maya said with a bitter laugh. She thinks I don't care about school. But school is all I have. It's my only way out of this. If I can just get scholarships, if I can just make it to college, I can get a good job. I can help my family. I can give Carlos and Sophia a better life. We have to tell someone, Sarah said. You can't do this alone. No, Maya said quickly. Promise me you won't tell anyone. But Maya, promise me, Maya said desperately. Please, Sarah, I'm begging you. Sarah was torn. She wanted to help Maya. But she also knew that Maya needed more help than one friend could give. Okay, Sarah finally said. I promise. But even as she said it, she knew she could not keep that promise. That afternoon, Sarah went back to Mr. Rodriguez's office. This time she told him everything Maya had shared. Every detail about the sick mother, the young siblings, the impossible schedule. Mr. Rodriguez listened with growing concern. When Sarah finished, he sat back in his chair and rubbed his face. This is serious, he said quietly. This is really serious. You can't take Carlos and Sophia away from her, Sarah said quickly. Please, that's her worst fear. I'm not trying to break up families, Mr. Rodriguez assured her. But Maya needs help. Real help. He picked up his phone and called the school counselor, Ms. Patricia Williams. She arrived at his office 10 minutes later. Ms. Williams was a black woman in her late 30s with kind eyes and a calm presence. Students trusted her because she actually cared about them as people, not just as numbers. Patricia, Mr. Rodriguez said, we need to talk about Maya Santos. As he explained the situation, Ms. Williams's expression grew more and more troubled. I've been worried about her, Ms. Williams admitted. She comes to my office sometimes during lunch. She never talks about what's wrong. She just sits there quietly and does homework. I knew something was up, but I didn't know it was this bad. We need to help her, Mr. Rodriguez said, but we need to do it carefully. She's terrified of social services. Ms. Williams nodded. Let me reach out to the hospital social worker first. We need to know exactly what Maya's mother's situation is, and we need to see what resources are available for the family. Meanwhile, in the gym, Maya was having a bad day that got even worse. Her class was playing basketball, and Maya was so exhausted she could barely keep up. She had not eaten since yesterday at lunch. Her head felt dizzy and light. She went up for a rebound and suddenly the whole gym started spinning. Her legs gave out under her. She hit the floor hard. Maya! Someone shouted. The gym teacher, Coach Martinez, ran over to her. Maya tried to sit up, but everything was still spinning. I'm okay, she mumbled. You're not okay, Coach Martinez said firmly. You just collapsed. We're going to the nurse. No, please, Maya said. I'm fine. I just need to rest for a minute. But Coach Martinez would not take no for an answer. She helped Maya stand up and walked her to the nurse's office. The school nurse, Mrs. Chen, took one look at Maya and sat her down immediately. She checked Maya's blood pressure and temperature. When was the last time you ate something? Mrs. Chen asked. Maya had to think about it. Yesterday at lunch, I think. Mrs. Chen looked alarmed. Yesterday? Honey, you need to eat. She gave Maya some crackers and orange juice. Maya ate slowly and the dizziness started to fade. I'm going to call Ms. Williams, Mrs. Chen said. You need to talk to someone. No, Maya said quickly. Please don't, I'm fine. But Mrs. Chen had already picked up the phone. Ms. Williams arrived 5 minutes later. She sat down next to Maya and spoke gently. Maya, I need you to be honest with me, she said. What's going on? Maya looked at her with tired eyes. She was so sick of lying, so sick of pretending everything was fine. Everything is falling apart, Maya whispered, and I don't know how to fix it. You don't have to fix everything alone, Ms. Williams said softly. That's too much for anyone to carry, especially a 15-year-old girl. But my mom... Tell me about your mom, Ms. Williams said, and Maya did. She told Ms. Williams everything. About the cancer. About the hospital. About Carlos and Sofia. About working late every night. About trying so hard to keep everything together. Ms. Williams listened to every word, and then she said something Maya was not expecting. You are one of the bravest people I have ever met, Ms. Williams said. What you've been doing is incredible. But you need help, and I'm going to make sure you get it. But social services... I'm not calling social services to take your family apart, Ms. Williams said firmly. I'm going to connect you with resources to keep your family together. There are programs that can help. Medical assistance, food assistance, maybe even housing help. You don't have to do this alone anymore. Maya started crying again, but this time they were different tears. They were tears of relief, really, she whispered. Really, Ms. Williams promised. We're going to figure this out together. For the first time in 3 months, Maya felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe things could get better. Maybe she did not have to carry the whole world on her shoulders anymore. But there was still Mrs. Bradford, and the 0 on the test, and the threat of being kicked out of honors English. As if reading her mind, Ms. Williams said, and we're going to talk to Mrs. Bradford too. What she did today was not acceptable. Maya looked up with wide eyes. You know about that? Sarah told Mr. Rodriguez everything, Ms. Williams admitted. She was worried about you. Maya did not know whether to feel betrayed or grateful. In the end, she decided on grateful. Sarah had cared enough to break her promise. That meant something. That evening, Ms. Williams made phone calls. She called the hospital and spoke to the social worker assigned to Maya's mother. She learned that Mrs. Santos's condition was stable for now, but she would need ongoing treatment and care at home. The hospital social worker was relieved to hear from the school. I've been worried about this family, she said. The mother is so scared of asking for help because of her immigration status. But there are resources available regardless of documentation. Together, they began making a plan. Back at home, Maya told Carlos and Sofia about Ms. Williams. She told them that help was coming, that things might get better. Are they going to take us away? Carlos asked with frightened eyes. No, Maya said, pulling him close. No one is taking you away. I promise. She hoped with all her heart that it was a promise she could keep. Tuesday morning, Mr. Rodriguez walked into Mrs. Bradford's first period class without warning. He carried a clipboard and sat in an empty desk at the back of the room. Mrs. Bradford looked surprised but quickly composed herself. "Good morning, Mr. Rodriguez. We're always happy to have observers. Please continue as you normally would," Mr. Rodriguez said with a small smile. The class period began normally enough. Mrs. Bradford reviewed the test from yesterday and went over some of the questions students got wrong. Maya sat quietly in her seat, trying to make herself invisible. But then Mrs. Bradford called on her. "Miss Santos, can you explain what Scout learned about courage in Chapter 11? Maya's heart sank. She knew the answer perfectly. She had studied that chapter 3 times, but Mrs. Bradford's tone made it clear she expected Maya to fail. "Scout learned that real courage isn't a man with a gun," Maya said quietly. "It's when you know you're going to lose before you start, but you start anyway and see it through no matter what." It was the exact quote from the book. Maya had it memorized. Mrs. Bradford looked surprised for just a moment. Then her face hardened again. "I suppose reading the chapter once is better than not reading it at all." Mr. Rodriguez made a note on his clipboard. The class continued. Mr. Rodriguez watched carefully. He noticed that Mrs. Bradford called on Maya more than any other student, but always with a tone that suggested she expected wrong answers. He noticed that when other students arrived a few minutes late, Mrs. Bradford did not say anything, but she had made a big show of Maya's lateness yesterday. He also noticed the way Maya held herself. Shoulders hunched, eyes down, like she was trying to disappear. This was not the confident student he remembered from last year. When Mrs. Bradford assigned homework, she made a pointed comment. "And please, everyone, manage your time well enough to actually complete the assignment. Some people in this class seem to think homework is optional." She looked directly at Maya when she said it. That was when Mr. Rodriguez saw Maya's hands clench into fists under her desk. He saw the way her jaw tightened. The girl was fighting back tears. After class ended, Mr. Rodriguez approached Mrs. Bradford. "Eleanor, can we talk in my office after school today?" Mrs. Bradford smiled confidently. "Of course. Is this about moving Miss Santos to a regular English class? I think that would be best for everyone." "We'll discuss it this afternoon," Mr. Rodriguez said neutrally. But inside he was angry. Very angry. He left the classroom and found Ms. Williams waiting in the hallway. "Well?" she asked. "You were right," Mr. Rodriguez said grimly. "There's definitely a problem here." That morning, Ms. Williams met with Maya during her free period. She had news. "I spoke with your mother's social worker yesterday," Ms. Williams said. "Maya, there are programs that can help your family." Maya looked up with cautious hope. "Really?" "Yes, there's emergency assistance available through the hospital. They can help with medical bills. And there are community organizations that provide food, housing support, and child care assistance. Your mother's immigration status doesn't matter for most of these programs." Maya felt tears coming to her eyes again. "I didn't know. Your mother was too scared to ask," Ms. Williams said gently. "But you don't have to be scared anymore. I've already started the paperwork for several programs, and I've arranged for a home health aide to help with your mother when she's discharged from the hospital." "A home health aide?" Maya whispered. "We can't afford that." "It's covered by emergency medical assistance," Ms. Williams explained. "You won't have to pay anything." Maya could not believe what she was hearing. Help was coming. Real help. "There's more," Ms. Williams continued. "I talked to your boss at Quick Burger. We're going to adjust your schedule so you work fewer hours. You need time to be a teenager and a student, not just a worker and a parent." "But we need the money," Maya protested. "And you'll still work enough to help your family," Ms. Williams assured her. "But you also need sleep. You need time for homework. You can't keep going the way you have been." Maya nodded slowly. She knew Ms. Williams was right. But it was hard to let go of the control she had been holding so tightly for 3 months. "And one more thing," Ms. Williams said. "The principal is meeting with Mrs. Bradford today. About the 0 she gave you on the test." Maya's eyes widened. "What?" "What she did was not fair," Ms. Williams said firmly. "You have the right to make up that test. Mr. Rodriguez is going to make sure it happens." That afternoon, Mrs. Bradford walked into Mr. Rodriguez's office with confidence. She sat down and crossed her legs waiting. Mr. Rodriguez did not waste time. "Eleanor, we need to talk about Maya Santos." "I'm glad you brought her up," Mrs. Bradford said. I really think she should be moved to a regular class. She's not cut out for honors-level work. Based on what? Mr. Rodriguez asked. Based on her chronic tardiness, missing assignments, and lack of engagement, Mrs. Bradford said. She clearly doesn't have the discipline for advanced coursework. Mr. Rodriguez leaned forward. Eleanor, do you know anything about Maya's personal situation? Mrs. Bradford waved her hand dismissively. I know she probably has to help out at home or something. Many students from that background do, but that doesn't excuse poor performance in that background. Mr. Rodriguez repeated. What background would that be? Mrs. Bradford hesitated. She realized she had said something wrong. I just meant, students from low-income families often have more responsibilities. Maya's mother is in the hospital with stage 3 cancer, Mr. Rodriguez said flatly. Maya is the sole caretaker for her 7-year-old brother and 5-year-old sister. She wakes up at 5 a.m. every day to get them ready for school, takes 2 buses to get them to their school, then takes 2 more buses to get here. After school, she works until 11 p.m. to help pay for her mother's medical bills and keep her family fed. She does her homework after midnight and sleeps maybe 4 hours a night. Mrs. Bradford's face went pale. I didn't know. You didn't ask, Mr. Rodriguez said. His voice was hard. You never once asked Maya why she was late. You just assumed. You thought what? Mr. Rodriguez interrupted. That she was lazy? That students from her background don't value education? Mrs. Bradford looked down at her hands. She had no defense. I observed your class this morning, Mr. Rodriguez continued. I saw the way you spoke to Maya, the tone you used, the assumptions you made, and Eleanor, I have to tell you, I was appalled. Now wait a minute, I'm not finished, Mr. Rodriguez said. Yesterday you gave Maya an automatic 0 on a major test because she was 18 minutes late. You didn't consider that the buses run slow in the rain. You didn't ask if there were extenuating circumstances. You just failed her. The rules apply to everyone, Mrs. Bradford said weakly. Do they? Mr. Rodriguez asked. Because I noticed that when Kevin Chen arrived 10 minutes late last week, you didn't say anything to him. When Brittany Morrison was 15 minutes late the week before, you let her take the quiz she missed. But Maya gets an automatic 0? Mrs. Bradford had no answer. Here's what's going to happen, Mr. Rodriguez said. You are going to allow Maya to retake that test. You are going to treat her with the same respect and patience you give your other students, and you are going to attend mandatory cultural sensitivity and bias training. You're accusing me of discrimination? Mrs. Bradford said, her voice rising. I'm not accusing you of anything, Mr. Rodriguez said calmly. I'm observing patterns in your behavior and requiring that you address them. This is not optional, Eleanor. This is a formal requirement. Mrs. Bradford stood up. Her face was red. I've been teaching here for 20 years. And I hope you'll teach here for many more, Mr. Rodriguez said. But only if you're willing to examine your biases and change your behavior. Every student in this school deserves to be treated fairly, regardless of their race, income level, or family situation. Mrs. Bradford left the office angry and embarrassed. But as she walked back to her classroom, something began to shift inside her. She kept thinking about what Mr. Rodriguez had said. Maya's mother had cancer. Maya was taking care of 2 small children. Maya was working 40 hours a week while trying to maintain honors-level coursework. And Mrs. Bradford had called her lazy. She had humiliated her in front of the class. She had given her a 0 without asking a single question about why she was late. Mrs. Bradford sat at her desk after school, staring at her gradebook. She found Maya's name and looked at all the marks next to it. Late, late, missing assignment, late, 0. But now she knew the truth behind those marks, and the truth made her feel sick. She thought about all the things she had said to Maya, about people like her and different priorities, and managing time better. She thought about the assumptions she had made based on Maya's appearance, her last name, the fact that she wore the same clothes repeatedly. For the first time in a long time, Mrs. Bradford questioned herself. Had she been unfair? Had she let her prejudices blind her to the truth? The answer was obvious, and it was painful to admit. That evening, Ms. Williams called Maya at home. I have good news. Mrs. Bradford has agreed to let you retake the test. Maya was shocked. Really? Really, Ms. Williams confirmed. You can take it Thursday morning before school. I'll be there to proctor it. I don't understand, Maya said. Why would she change her mind? Let's just say Mr. Rodriguez had a serious conversation with her, Ms. Williams said. But Maya, this is about more than one test. The whole school is rallying to help you. Your teachers, your classmates, the staff. You have support now. After hanging up, Maya sat on the couch with Carlos and Sophia. They were watching cartoons, happy and safe. For the first time in months, Maya let herself believe that things might actually be okay. The next day at school, something unexpected happened. Sarah came up to Maya at lunch with 3 other students. We want to help, Sarah said. We've been talking and we think we can set up a carpool schedule, so you don't have to take the bus anymore. Maya stared at them. You want to drive me to school? My mom said she can do Tuesdays and Thursdays, said a girl named Jessica. She drives right by your apartment building. My dad can do Mondays, added a boy named Marcus. And I can cover Wednesdays and Fridays, Sarah said. We'll pick you up at 7:45. That way you can get your siblings to school and still make it here on time. Maya felt tears streaming down her face. Why are you doing this? Because we're your friends, Sarah said simply. And friends help each other. That night Maya sat at the kitchen table with a small smile on her face. She was studying for the makeup test, but for the first time in months, she felt hopeful. Maybe she could do this. Maybe, with help, she could keep her family together and still succeed in school. Maybe things were finally starting to change. Thursday morning came with clear skies and a feeling of change in the air. Maya arrived at school at 7:15 a.m., 45 minutes before class started. Ms. Williams was waiting for her in an empty classroom with the makeup test. You ready? Ms. Williams asked with an encouraging smile. Maya nodded. She had studied hard for this test the first time, and she had reviewed the material again last night. She knew this book inside and out. Ms. Williams set the test paper on the desk in front of Maya and started a timer. Take your time. You have the full 50 minutes if you need them. Maya picked up her pencil and began. The questions came easily. She wrote about Scout's journey from innocence to understanding. She analyzed Atticus Finch's moral courage. She explained the symbolism of the mockingbird. She finished with 20 minutes to spare. She read through her answers twice, checking for any mistakes. Then she stood up and handed the test to Ms. Williams. All done? Ms. Williams asked. Yes, ma'am, Maya said. For the first time in months, she felt confident about her work. Ms. Williams looked at the test. She was not supposed to grade it, but she could not help glancing at Maya's answers. They were thorough, thoughtful, and clearly written. This was the work of a student who belonged in honors English. Maya, Ms. Williams said softly, this is excellent work. Maya allowed herself a small smile. Thank you. Now go get some breakfast before class starts, Ms. Williams said. The cafeteria is serving pancakes this morning. Maya hesitated. She did not have money for breakfast. She had given her last few dollars to Carlos for his school lunch. Ms. Williams saw the hesitation and understood immediately. She pulled out a cafeteria card from her desk. Here. This card is loaded with guest meals. Teachers use them when we have visitors. Go eat something. Maya took the card gratefully. Thank you, Ms. Williams, for everything. You don't have to thank me, Ms. Williams said. I'm just sorry we didn't know sooner. You shouldn't have had to carry all of this alone. Maya went to the cafeteria and got pancakes, scrambled eggs, and orange juice. She sat at a table by herself and ate slowly, savoring every bite. It was the first real breakfast she had eaten in weeks. When first period started, Maya walked into Mrs. Bradford's classroom with her head held a little higher than usual. Sarah gave her a thumbs up from across the room. Mrs. Bradford looked up when Maya entered. Their eyes met for just a moment. Mrs. Bradford looked away first. Good morning, class, Mrs. Bradford began. Her voice sounded different somehow, less sharp, less cold. The lesson was about symbolism in literature. Mrs. Bradford asked questions and students raised their hands to answer. She called on Maya once, and when Maya gave a thoughtful answer, Mrs. Bradford simply nodded and said, "Good observation. No criticism. No sarcasm. Just acknowledgement." After class, as students filed out, Mrs. Bradford called out, "Miss Santos, could you stay for a moment?" Maya's stomach tightened with old fear, but she walked up to Mrs. Bradford's desk. Mrs. Bradford stood there for a long moment, seeming to struggle with something. Finally, she spoke. "I got your makeup test from Ms. Williams," she said quietly. "You got an A." Maya felt relief wash over her. "Thank you for letting me retake it." "You shouldn't have gotten a 0 in the first place," Mrs. Bradford said. The words seemed to cost her something to say. That was not fair of me." Maya did not know what to say. Mrs. Bradford looked down at her hands. "Mr. Rodriguez told me about your situation, your mother, your siblings, everything you've been dealing with." Maya felt her body tense. This was the moment she had been dreading. The pity, the judgment. But Mrs. Bradford's next words surprised her. "I should have asked," Mrs. Bradford said. Her voice was thick with emotion. "I should have asked you why you were late instead of just assuming. I should have seen that you were struggling instead of thinking you didn't care." She looked up at Maya, and there were tears in her eyes. "I was wrong about you," Mrs. Bradford continued. "I was wrong in the worst way possible. I let my prejudices and my assumptions blind me to the truth, and I hurt you because of it." Maya stood frozen. She had imagined this moment before, but never like this. She had imagined Mrs. Bradford making excuses or defending herself. She had not imagined this raw honesty. "I humiliated you in front of your classmates," Mrs. Bradford said. Her voice was shaking now. "I said terrible things about your culture and your work ethic. I questioned whether you belonged in this class. And all the while, you were carrying more weight than any 15-year-old should ever have to carry." A tear rolled down Mrs. Bradford's cheek. She wiped it away quickly. "I am so sorry, Maya," she said. "I am sorry for every harsh word. I am sorry for not seeing you. I am sorry for treating you like you were less than the other students." Maya felt her own eyes filling with tears. She had wanted to hear these words for so long. But now that they were here, she did not know how to respond. "I know that saying sorry doesn't fix anything," Mrs. Bradford continued. "I know that my words and actions hurt you deeply. And I know that you have every right to hate me." "I don't hate you," Maya said quietly. It was the first time she had spoken. You made me feel like I was nothing." Mrs. Bradford's face crumpled. "I know, and that was unforgivable." They stood there in silence for a long moment. The classroom felt very quiet. "I'm going to do better," Mrs. Bradford finally said. "I'm taking training courses on cultural sensitivity and implicit bias. I'm examining my teaching practices and the way I treat students. I'm working to be better. But I want you to know that I understand if you can never forgive me." Maya thought about her mother in the hospital bed. She thought about the book they were reading in class, about Atticus Finch teaching Scout about understanding people by walking in their shoes. "I need time," Maya said honestly. "I can't just forget everything that happened." "I understand," Mrs. Bradford said. "Take all the time you need." Maya picked up her backpack. "But thank you for apologizing. That means something." As Maya left the classroom, Mrs. Bradford sat down at her desk and put her head in her hands. She had a long journey ahead of her. 20 years of unconscious biases did not disappear overnight. But she was committed to changing. Over the next few weeks, things at school slowly improved for Maya. The carpool schedule that Sarah and her friends set up worked perfectly. Maya arrived at school on time every day. Her teachers had been informed about her situation, and they made accommodations when she needed them. Extra time on assignments. The ability to make up work when her mother had bad days. Understanding instead of judgment. The school community rallied around Maya's family in other ways too. Teachers organized a fundraiser that raised $3,000 for medical bills. Parents donated groceries and clothes for Carlos and Sofia. The PTA set up a meal train, delivering dinner to Maya's apartment 3 times a week. Maya's manager at Quick Burger adjusted her schedule like Ms. Williams had requested. She now worked 3 evenings a week instead of 6, and never passed 10 p.m. on school nights. The most surprising support came from Mrs. Bradford's first period class. After learning about Maya's situation, the students decided to create a study group. They met twice a week after school to work on homework together. When Maya could not make it, they shared notes with her online. Sarah became Maya's closest friend. She helped Maya catch up on work she had fallen behind on. She listened when Maya needed to talk. She made Maya laugh when everything felt too heavy. But the most important change was happening at home. The hospital social worker had connected Maya's family with multiple assistance programs. A home health aide came 3 times a week to help care for Maya's mother, who had been released from the hospital to continue treatment at home. Maya's mother, Mrs. Santos, was weak but stable. The new cancer treatment seemed to be working better than the last one. She still had a long road ahead, but there was hope. One Saturday afternoon, Maya brought her mother tea and sat on the edge of her bed. "You look tired, mija," Mrs. Santos said in Spanish. She reached up and touched Maya's face gently. "I'm okay, Mama," Maya said. "I'm actually doing a lot better." She told her mother about the test she had aced, about her friends who were helping her get to school, about how her grades were coming back up. "I'm sorry you had to do all of this alone," Mrs. Santos said with tears in her eyes. "I should have asked for help sooner." "We were both scared," Maya said. "But we have help now. We're going to be okay." Mrs. Santos squeezed her daughter's hand. "You are so strong, Maya. Stronger than I ever was at your age." "I learned from the best," Maya said with a smile. At school on Monday, Maya walked into Mrs. Bradford's class and took her seat. Mrs. Bradford handed back graded essays from the previous week. Maya received hers with a red A at the top and detailed comments throughout. "Excellent analysis of the themes," Mrs. Bradford had written. "Your insights about courage and moral integrity are mature and well supported." After class, Mrs. Bradford approached Maya's desk. "Do you have a minute?" she asked. Maya nodded. "I wanted to tell you something," Mrs. Bradford said. "I've been teaching for 20 years and I thought I knew what good teaching looked like. I thought being strict and having high standards was enough." She paused and looked directly at Maya. "But you taught me something more important," she continued. "You taught me that good teaching means seeing your students as whole people. It means asking questions instead of making assumptions. It means understanding that every student comes to class carrying things we can't see." Maya felt a lump in her throat. "You also taught me something about myself," Mrs. Bradford admitted. "I discovered that I had biases I didn't even know were there. Prejudices that shaped the way I treated students who looked different from me or came from different backgrounds. That must have been hard to realize," Maya said quietly. "It was," Mrs. Bradford agreed. "It still is. But it was necessary. And I want you to know that I'm grateful to you for holding up that mirror, even though I know that was never your responsibility." Mrs. Bradford reached into her desk and pulled out a college scholarship application. "This is for a program that provides full scholarships to students who have overcome significant adversity," she said, handing it to Maya. "I think you would be perfect for it, and I would be honored to write you a recommendation letter." Maya looked at the application with wide eyes. "Really?" "Really," Mrs. Bradford said. "You belong in college, Maya. You belong in any classroom you want to be in, and I'm going to do everything I can to help you get there." For the first time since this whole ordeal began, Maya smiled at Mrs. Bradford. A real, genuine smile. "Thank you, Mrs. Bradford," she said. "That means a lot." As Maya left the classroom, Mrs. Bradford watched her go. She thought about the girl who had walked into her class in August full of potential and hope. She thought about how close she had come to destroying that hope with her cruelty and prejudice. She would never make that mistake again. 3 months passed, like pages turning in a book. Winter gave way to early spring, and with it came changes that nobody could have predicted back in November. Maya's mother continued her cancer treatment at home. Some days were better than others. On good days, she could sit up in bed and help Sophia with her reading homework. On bad days, the home health aide handled everything while Maya focused on school. But even on the bad days, there was hope. The latest scans showed that the tumors were shrinking. The new treatment was working. Mrs. Santos still had months of therapy ahead, but the doctors were cautiously optimistic. Carlos and Sophia were doing better too. They had settled into a routine that felt almost normal. They went to an after-school program 3 days a week, funded by one of the assistance programs Ms. Williams had helped them access. The program provided homework help, dinner, and activities until Maya could pick them up at 6 p.m. On the days without the program, Sarah's mother picked them up from school and brought them to the high school library, where Maya could watch them while she studied. The librarian, Mrs. Kim, had grown fond of the two children and often read them stories. Maya's grades had not just recovered, they had soared. She finished the semester with straight A's in all her classes, including honors English. Her teachers wrote glowing recommendations for the scholarship Mrs. Bradford had told her about. But the biggest change was in Mrs. Bradford herself. She had completed the mandatory cultural sensitivity training that Mr. Rodriguez required, but she did not stop there. She attended workshops on implicit bias. She read books about race and privilege in education. She joined a discussion group of teachers working to make their classrooms more equitable. More importantly, she changed the way she taught. She started each semester by meeting individually with every student to learn about their lives, their goals, and their challenges. She created flexible policies for late work and absences, understanding that life happened and students faced obstacles she might never know about unless she asked. She stopped making assumptions. She started asking questions, and she listened to the answers. The other teachers noticed the change. Some of them were inspired by it and began examining their own practices. Others were uncomfortable with the idea that they might need to change. One day in March, Mrs. Bradford stood in front of her first period class with an announcement. "I want to talk to you all about something important," she began. "As you know, we've been reading books about justice, prejudice, and moral courage this semester. To Kill a Mockingbird, The Hate You Give, Just Mercy. These are stories about people confronting their biases and choosing to do better." The students listened quietly. Maya sat in her usual seat, her notebook open. "But these aren't just stories," Mrs. Bradford continued. "They're mirrors that show us who we are and who we can choose to become. This year I had to look in that mirror, and what I saw was not pleasant." She took a deep breath. The classroom was completely silent now. "Earlier this year I treated one of your classmates unfairly," Mrs. Bradford said. Her voice was steady but emotional. "I made assumptions based on prejudice. I was cruel when I should have been compassionate. I judged when I should have listened." Maya felt her face grow warm. She knew Mrs. Bradford was talking about her even though she was not using names. "That student taught me something I should have learned long ago," Mrs. Bradford went on. "They taught me that every person carries invisible burdens. Every student who walks into this classroom has a story I don't know. And it's my job as a teacher to see you all as complete human beings, not just names in a grade book." She looked around the room, making eye contact with different students. "So I want to apologize," she said, "to all of you. Because if I treated one student unfairly, I was failing all of you. You deserved a teacher who was better than that. And I'm working every day to become that teacher." After a moment of stunned silence, one student started clapping, then another. Soon the whole class was applauding. Mrs. Bradford blinked back tears. Maya caught Mrs. Bradford's eye and gave her a small nod. It was not forgiveness exactly. It was something more complicated. It was acknowledgement, recognition, the beginning of healing. That afternoon, Maya met with Ms. Williams in her office. They had started having weekly check-ins to make sure Maya was managing everything okay. "How are things going?" Ms. Williams asked. "Better," Maya said, and she meant it. "Mom's treatment is working. Carlos and Sophia are happy. My grades are good. I'm even sleeping more than 5 hours a night now." Ms. Williams smiled. "That's wonderful, Maya. You should be proud of yourself." "I couldn't have done it without help," Maya said. "Without you and Sarah and all the teachers and students who stepped up. I was drowning before and I didn't even realize how bad it was. Sometimes we can't see how much we're struggling until someone throws us a lifeline," Ms. Williams said gently. "The important thing is that you held on." She pulled out a folder from her desk. "Speaking of which, I have some news. Remember that scholarship Mrs. Bradford told you about?" Maya nodded, her heart starting to race. "You've been selected as a finalist," Ms. Williams said with a huge smile. "You'll have an interview next month. If you get it, it covers full tuition, room and board at any participating college." Maya's hands flew to her mouth. "Are you serious?" Completely serious, Ms. Williams said. Maya, you have a real shot at this. Your essay about overcoming adversity was incredibly powerful, and your teacher's recommendations were some of the strongest I've ever read. Maya started crying. But these were good tears. Happy tears. Tears of relief and hope and possibility. I can actually go to college, she whispered. I can actually do this. You were always going to do this, Ms. Williams said firmly. You're one of the smartest, strongest, most determined students I've ever met. Now you just have the support you needed all along. That evening, Maya came home to find her mother sitting in the living room with Carlos and Sophia. It was the first time in months that Mrs. Santos had been out of bed for more than a few minutes. Mama, Sophia squealed, hugging her mother gently. I'm feeling better today, Mrs. Santos said with a weak but genuine smile. I wanted to have dinner with my babies. They ate together at the small kitchen table. The food was from the meal train that the school community had organized. It was chicken casserole and salad and fresh bread. To Maya, it tasted like love. I have good news, Maya said. She told them about the scholarship finalist notification. Mrs. Santos started crying. My smart girl, she said in Spanish. I always knew you would do amazing things. We're going to be okay, Mama, Maya said, squeezing her mother's hand. All of us. We're going to be okay. April arrived with cherry blossoms and longer days. Maya continued to thrive in school. She joined the debate team and discovered she had a talent for public speaking. She helped Sarah with chemistry homework and received help with calculus in return. Her relationship with Mrs. Bradford evolved into something neither of them had expected. Not quite friendship, but not just teacher and student either. It was a relationship built on honesty, accountability, and mutual respect. One day after class, Mrs. Bradford asked Maya to stay behind again. I have something for you, Mrs. Bradford said. She handed Maya an envelope. Inside was a letter. A recommendation letter for the scholarship interview. Maya read it with growing amazement. Mrs. Bradford had written about Maya's intelligence and determination. But more than that, she had written about Maya's character, her compassion, her resilience, her ability to maintain grace under impossible circumstances. But I also wrote something else, Mrs. Bradford said. She seemed nervous. I wrote about my own failures as a teacher, about how I almost crushed your spirit with my prejudice, about how you taught me to be better. Maya looked up in surprise. You told them about what happened? I thought you should know the whole truth, Mrs. Bradford said. About who you are, but also about what you overcame, including overcoming a teacher who should have supported you but instead tore you down. Won't that make you look bad? Maya asked. It should make me look bad, Mrs. Bradford said simply, because I was bad, but I hope it also shows the truth about you, that you're strong enough to face injustice and still keep moving forward. Maya folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. Thank you, she said quietly, for being honest. Thank you for giving me the chance to grow, Mrs. Bradford replied. The scholarship interview came in late April. Maya dressed in a simple blue dress that Sarah had helped her pick out. She walked into the room with her head held high. The interview panel asked her about her goals, her challenges, and her dreams. Maya told them the truth. All of it, the cancer, the caregiving, the poverty, the racism she had faced from a teacher who had learned to be better. Why do you want to go to college? One of the panelists asked. Maya thought about Carlos and Sophia, about her mother fighting cancer, about the community that had lifted her up when she was falling. Because I want to be someone who helps people, Maya said. I want to be a social worker like Ms. Williams, or a lawyer who helps families like mine, or a teacher who sees students the way Mrs. Bradford learned to see me. She paused and then added, I want to take all this pain I've been through and turn it into something good, something that helps other people who are struggling. The panelists smiled at each other. 2 weeks later, the letter came. Maya opened it with shaking hands while her mother, Carlos, Sophia, and the home health aide watched. Dear Miss Santos, it began. We are pleased to inform you that you have been selected to receive the Adversity Scholars Program full scholarship. Maya screamed. Carlos and Sophia jumped up and down. Mrs. Santos cried and laughed at the same time. You did it, mija, her mother said, pulling Maya into a gentle hug. You did it. The last day of school came too quickly. Maya cleaned out her locker and said goodbye to teachers who had become mentors. She hugged Sarah and promised to stay in touch over the summer. Finally, she walked into Mrs. Bradford's classroom one last time. It was empty except for the teacher who was organizing papers at her desk. "Maya," Mrs. Bradford said, standing up. "I'm so glad you came by." "I wanted to say thank you," Maya said. "And goodbye." "This isn't goodbye," Mrs. Bradford said. "You'll come back and visit. You'll tell me about college. You'll let me know how your mother is doing." "I will," Maya promised. They stood there for a moment, two people who had been through a painful journey together and had come out changed on the other side. "Maya," Mrs. Bradford said. Her voice was thick with emotion. "I want you to know something. What happened between us this year, it changed my life. It made me examine everything I thought I knew about myself. And it made me a better teacher. A better person. I'm glad something good came from it," Maya said. "More than something good," Mrs. Bradford insisted. "You saved me from myself. You held up a mirror and forced me to see my own prejudice. That was a gift, even though it came at a terrible cost to you." Maya thought about everything that had happened. The humiliation, the tears, the fear, but also the strength she had discovered in herself. The community that had rallied around her. The changes that had rippled through the school. "Maybe we both learned something," Maya said. "You learned to see people differently. And I learned that asking for help isn't weakness, it's courage." Mrs. Bradford nodded, tears running down her face. "I'm so proud of you, Maya, and I'm so sorry for everything I put you through." "I know," Maya said. And finally, after all these months, she added, "I forgive you." Mrs. Bradford let out a sob. "Thank you," she whispered. They hugged, and in that embrace was all the pain and growth and transformation of the past year. When Maya left Riverside High School that day, she walked out with her head held high. She had survived the hardest year of her life. She had faced prejudice, poverty, and impossible burdens, and she had come through it stronger. Behind her, Mrs. Bradford watched from her classroom window. She watched Maya walk across the parking lot where Sarah was waiting to give her a ride home. She watched the two girls hug and laugh, and she made a silent promise to herself and to every student who would walk into her classroom in the future. She would never again let prejudice blind her to the truth. She would never again assume she knew a student's story without asking. She would never again use her power to hurt instead of heal. Maya Santos had taught her the most important lesson of her teaching career. And Mrs. Bradford would spend the rest of her life passing that lesson forward. As summer began, Maya sat with her mother on their small apartment balcony. The evening air was warm and sweet. Carlos and Sofia were inside watching a movie. "What are you thinking about, mija?" her mother asked. Maya looked out at the city lights twinkling in the distance. She thought about everything she had survived. Everything she had learned. Everything that lay ahead. "I'm thinking about the future," Maya said. "And for the first time in a long time, I'm not afraid of it." Mrs. Santos squeezed her daughter's hand. "You're going to do beautiful things with your life." "We're going to do beautiful things," Maya corrected. "All of us together," and she believed it. After everything she had been through, after all the darkness and struggle and pain, Maya finally believed in hope again. Not because everything was perfect. Her mother still had cancer to fight. They still struggled with money. The world was still full of prejudice and injustice. But Maya had learned something important. She had learned that people could change, that communities could come together, that speaking truth could break down walls, that forgiveness was possible, even when the wounds were deep. She had learned that she was stronger than she ever knew, and that asking for help was not giving up, it was holding on. As the sun set over the city, Maya smiled. She had survived her darkest year, and now finally she was ready to step into the light.